Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Today, we're going to talk about the Unity Scheduler. This may be something that you have heard about or may not have heard about. It's a relatively new product from Hyland. It came out, I believe, with version 14, and they have continued to enhance it with each version, and they will probably continue to do so as we keep moving closer to using this and removing some other products, which we will talk about throughout this presentation. All right, and here's a lovely picture of our customer care group. Paul and I are going to be presenting this information today. And just like with every other webinar, everybody is muted. You can use the chat box or the question box to give us questions throughout the presentation, and we will answer those at the end. You will be presented with a survey. We use that information in the survey to create the next webinars moving forward. So we suggest that you enter anything in there that you really want to hear about, so we have a better idea of what we can present to you next time. And then if you go out to our website and go to the resources video page, you will be able to look at all of our previous webinars. So our agenda today. So we're going to tell you what the Unity Scheduler is, its benefits, how it can benefit you, the overview of the management console, which is used to configure your scheduler, your scheduled processes, creating a task, reconfiguring a task. You can also export dashboards through a schedule. We're also going to talk about customizing your schedules and your execution windows. And then it also has a reporting segment to it also. So we will also talk about that. Okay. So the Unity Scheduler, if you don't know, like I said before, is a new product that came out, I believe, version 14. It is, as of version 18, is going to replace the workflow timer service. So once you upgrade to 18, the workflow timer service will no longer be available, and you will then be using the workflow or the Unity Scheduler to run your workflow timers. It contains two basic parts. There's actually the scheduler service, the service itself, which I'm sure most of you are aware of, especially if you use workflow timers, the Hyland workflow timer service. This can be named literally anything you want it to be named. Generally, we name it Unity Scheduler Service, but there's some options there, and there's a management console that allows you to add tasks and execution windows and manage all of that information. So now I'm going to turn it over to Paul, and he is going to talk a little bit more about the nuts and bolts that go with the Unity Scheduler.
All right, well, thank you, Jen. Yeah, so like Jen was saying, the Hyland Unity Scheduler consists of two main components. You have the Unity Management Console and the Scheduler service itself. In essence, what the scheduler is a combination of these two parts, which is a management console with a studio look and feel, and the scheduler service itself. So the management console is where all the actual configuration will be taking place. Your execution windows, anything to do with the timing of the tasks that occur. And it does require an application server in order to reach out to the database. The installation for the management console is your basic .msi, just your next. And the scheduler service, this is what actually executes those scheduled tasks. It utilizes a direct ODBC connection to get out to the database. And the MSI installer for this only installs the files for the scheduler service. The actual services are installed via command prompt. The MRG does an excellent job of outlining that process. So to go over some of the benefits here of the Unity scheduler, the biggest thing is that it's in a centralized location. Everything from creating the task and configuring a custom schedule to further defining one of the many schedule templates that are now available is all within that one easy-to-use management console. Unity scheduler is multi-threaded. It has the ability to handle running multiple processes and scheduled tasks concurrently. Now, schedule customization. This is what really sets Unity scheduler apart as far as making this whole process as painless as possible. The big takeaway here is that you no longer have to configure a unique schedule for every task your organization requires. Once the custom schedule that meets your needs has been created, it can then be used again and again for all similar tasks. For example, any off-hour task or weekly tasks. Another benefit is Unity Scheduler can manage the scheduling for multiple functionalities. Of course, there are the workflow timers, but now the Unity Client Scheduler offers something that was never offered before by Hyland, and it's a method of scheduling report dashboard exports. This scheduling, as well as scheduling of Unity scripts to execute within your solution, are once again all done within that one centralized location. Unity Scheduler utilizes an OnBase service account, whereas before workflow timers required a unique OnBase account that all needed the proper privileges and access to ensure the completion of a task. Unity Scheduler simply uses an OnBase service account with no need to ensure the account has access to the individual affected document types, eliminating the need for the time-consuming verification that would normally go into those types of tasks. Also, from within Unity Management Console, you can generate reports. You get your audit logs, configuration reports, execution history reports. These logs and reports can be used to track actions from within the Unity Management Console and view details on task configuration and execution. And last but not least is legacy timers. So you will still have access to all those workflow timers that you already have working within your solution. And on top of that, Unity Scheduler has incorporated a process to easily upgrade these pre-existing timers into a Unity Scheduler timer. One more quick piece of information before we jump into our demo today, licensing. So no license purchase is necessary to operate the Unity Scheduler. You would just utilize, a workstation or concurrent or named license. And functionality is based on the licenses you currently own. So for example, if you want to use workflow timers, you would obviously need a workflow client license, Unity scripts, etc. Okay, so the management console. So this is where all the configuration will be taking place. It's very simple to use, it's very transparent. So let's jump right into an overview. The Unity Management Console contains three main parts. From left to right, it contains the console tree, the view pane, and the action pane. On the far left, you have the console tree. Much like Workflow or OnBase Studio, this is where you'll be selecting through your different tasks. In the center is the view pane. The view pane displays lists based on the selection in the console tree. And on the far right is the action pane, which displays available actions you can perform. Actions include creating a new item, importing, exporting. Also within the view pane, when a task is selected, you are able to view the task details. So that's a quick overview of what the management console is going to look like. So let's begin leveraging the functionalities of the Unity Scheduler with the creation of a task. To connect to a task scheduler, you need to select Add and then Task Scheduler. Once again, you need a connection to the app server. And under Tasks, you see the task groups you've already configured. A key thing to note here is the unassigned, which is where all the tasks will be defaulted to go if they were configured without a specific task group. Also, a best practice is to name each one of these task groups based on the functionality. That way, all similar tasks can be found within the same location and executed by the same service. So let's go ahead and create a task. Let's just navigate over to the action pane and select Create Task. Let's give our task a name. And this drop-down displays all the available task groups that you have available. For this example, we're going to leave it as None. Now we're going to select workflow. Next is where you select the workflow timers that you already have within your solution. It's going to ask which configuration, and this is where we can select a timer configuration that we already have set up in OnBase Studio. Keeping the note here, it's only going to display the timers that are set up as a Unity scheduler timer. So we're going to add our user groups. All right, so this is here where we're going to be getting into what really sets Unity scheduler apart. Here are the templates that I mentioned earlier, as well as access to any schedule you've already configured. For example, there are pre-configured schedules you can further define. I'll go more into detail about these just a bit later. For now, let's go with interval timer. Let's go ahead and set that for every 5 minutes. You also have the option to add additional intervals to the same task as well. Next, we have our execution windows. If you already have an execution window configured that meets your needs, you don't have to recreate it for each task. You can simply select it here. So we'll go over that a bit later as well. So the last configuration step is to select when the task will start and expire. This gives you the ability to set a temporary task that will only run for a predetermined amount of time, or to get a head start and set a task up about a month or two in advance until when you would like it to start executing. And then lastly, you're going to receive a summary of your task configuration, which shows your schedule type, user groups, etc. And so just like that, we created our first task within the Unity Management Console. Now, like I showed you in that last example, I left that task unassigned as far as this particular task group. So next I'm going to review how simple and easy it is to reconfigure a task that you've already created. So the task we created wasn't assigned to a specific task group upon creation, so it's going to go to the unassigned task group, the catch-all. As you can see, we're getting this warning icon and error message with the task, which is the Management Console's way of letting you know at a glance that this task will not be executing according to its configured schedule because no services have been assigned to execute that schedule. So we can simply just scroll over to that task, right-click and select Reconfigure or Configure. This drop-down will display all the available task groups that you have, and we'll select Workflow Finance for this one. All these changes that you perform in the task will show up once you perform an audit on this task as well. So we just kind of next through all these. You can make any other configuration changes you want. And so now that task is no longer an unassigned and has been moved to Workflow Finance. And that message and warning icon are now gone. So if you currently have reporting dashboards functionality, you know how extremely useful it can be to provide oversight and transparency in literally any section of your business process. And you've had the ability to export those dashboards as well. Now with Unity Scheduler, we can schedule the export of any of our dashboards, adding yet another great way to flex the capabilities of that functionality. So first off, I want to show you what the dashboard I will be exporting as a report is going to look like within OnBase. The key thing to note here is the parameters for this particular dashboard. Two separate pieces of information need to be set to display the date. The date range and the users that you want this data to be displayed on. All right, so there's an example of that dashboard with an OnBase. Let's jump right back into the Management Console and get started. First thing is to create a new task group. As I was saying before, this is a great way of keeping things organized. This way, any tasks that I have for exporting dashboards can all be used in the same task group and executed by the same service. All right, so next up, we're going to create a task. Let's give the task a name and assign it to a task group. Let's go with login activity, and let's go with that dashboard task group. All right, there are some interesting things here you can do as far as saving this export. Well, first, yeah, let's select data there. All right, so here we go. So some interesting things here as far as saving this, this dashboard export. By selecting this checkbox here, you can have the spreadsheet saved right within your OnBase solution. And this drop down here is going to show you all of the document types that you can have it go in. So it can go right in to something to archive or right into a workflow for email, for easy email distribution. For this example, I'm going to be saving this to a network location. So we'll give the export a name, And then this insert dropdown allows you to add some variables into the name of your file name. Seeing as though that we're going with a kind of like a monthly thing, I'm going to go with current date and pretty this up just a little bit so it'll display nicely. And let's just save this for the desktop for this example. And you have that same variable options for the name of the network location as well. So override existing file. All right, so now we're presented with all of the reporting dashboards currently configured within our solution. I'll select the dashboard I showed you earlier. As you can see, with the option for a single task to export multiple dashboards. In essence, what this would mean is they would appear within the same CSV file as just additional tabs on the spreadsheet. So here are those parameters that I showed you earlier. Depending on the dashboard you selected, you're presented with its own configurable parameters for what data you would like to display. Yeah, so let's set this for the month of September, all users. You also have the ability to alter the order in which the data will be displayed on the spreadsheet itself. So let's get these pertinent pieces of information to display a little sooner. Move them up to the top. And to keep this as clean as possible, let's include our column headers. So we select which user groups we want to have access to this task. I'll go with administrator and add them up there. And just like any other scheduled task, we need to select our actual schedule. You could have this be updated daily or weekly. This I really wanted to highlight, the monthly day relative. You can select a first Sunday, third Monday, or fifth Friday of every month. I can see this being very useful tasks that get executed in conjunction, let's say, with like a pay period. You also have the ability to select full calendar, so you can go throughout the year and have this task execute on specific days throughout the year. Let's say you want to go and select all the holidays, so you can get the login activity during those holiday periods, or whatever's going to meet your needs. For this task, let's just do a monthly, and once again here you can see that the last day of every month is also a selectable option. But yeah, so bottom line on these configurable templates is that it makes the scheduling process just a lot less painful and much more easy to manipulate. All right, so for this task, let's go with monthly and that. All right, so yeah, we covered that expire thing. So now we're going to get our task summary. So if we select the task group we just assigned it to, you'll see that new task appear within the view pane. A great way of keeping things organized. Oh, and I also wanted to show you that both of these task groups have their own schedule service assigned to them. So you can see here that we have these scheduler services that I set up earlier. And like Jen was saying, we can prefix these with a similar name. So Unity Scheduler and then the functionality, or Hyland and then the functionality. So that way all of your scheduled services are going to appear in this dialog window, you know, all right next to each other, very nice, easy to manage. So with this, you can execute a task at any time, regardless of its configured schedule. So let's go ahead and execute this so we can get an example of that dashboard. All right, and there's an example of the dashboard we just exported. So yeah, excellent tool to be able to leverage. You can have it meet your needs. And so this is possibly my favorite feature of the Unity Scheduler, the ability to not only create a custom schedule that meets your needs, but to easily assign it to any other task. Okay, so let's jump right in. By selecting schedules within the console tree, the view pane will display all of the custom schedules you have already configured. All right, so let's create a new schedule. Over here in the action pane, create a new schedule, give it a descriptive name. I can also put the description in there, which will appear later as well. Presented with those same template options, which you can further configure. Since we're doing this off hours, let's go with weekly and select Monday through Friday. And then let's have this start at the end of the workday. Let's go with 6 p.m. And there's your summary. So as simple as that, we just created a custom schedule for off hours tasks that are going to start at 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Now I'm going to show you how easy it is to just assign that custom schedule we just made. So once again, right click, reconfigure, next through until we get to that scheduling portion. Okay, so then for this drop down, we're going to go down to existing schedule. And here all the schedules and descriptions are presented and selectable. Simple as that, we just added that custom schedule to that task. It's the same easy process for creating an event window. Navigate over to the action pane and select event window, and the wizard will appear. Let's give it a name. Let's go with off hours again. Event windows are used with tasks that are scheduled to run on an interval, like the workflow finance task that we created earlier. So for off hours, let's select all days of the week, and let's further define those parameters. Start just after the workday and have it stop just before the workday here. Okay, and just like that, we created a custom event window. So let's go ahead and assign it to that task. So configure, we're going to next through until we get to the event windows portion. And so right here, as I showed you earlier, you can select this and that'll show all the event windows that you have configured in your solution. And so now we have that event window assigned to that workflow finance task. So our finance task was an interval of 5 minutes. So now this task is set to execute every 5 minutes, Monday through Friday, starting at 6 p.m. and stopping at 5 a.m. So the last piece of functionality I'm going to cover today is the reporting that the Unity scheduler offers you now. There's a few key reports that are now made available within the management console. You have configuration, execution history, and audit. So configuration reports. In order to display these reports, you're going to need a task selected within the council tree. Then your reports are made available on the right-hand side within the action pane over here. You can define your search via task group and task and kind of filter out through all the many tasks that your organization might have. And then this is an example of what that configuration report is going to look like. A couple key pieces of information. Also, what I wanted to show you here, let's go back here. This, as far as the output, as far as how to save this file, once again, you have the option to save this file, right as a system configuration report, or save it, somewhere in a network location as well. So there's your report. Execution history report. Yeah, so this is going to give you much more in-depth at the look of the execution history of any scheduled task that you have configured. Once again, just going to make sure a task selected over there. That way your reports are available over here on the action pane. Select execution history report. There's your dialog window. Filter it by your date range, how far back of this information that you want to view on the particular task you have selected. There's an example of an execution history report. This is going to give you all the information every time that timer was executed, when it started, when it ended, and all the items that process, that task is executed on. All right, so audit logs, the last report I wanted to show you today. Once again, audit log, just right over here. All right, so the audit log is going to show you all of the configuration changes made to a task. It shows what changes were made and by which user. As you can see here, it shows when the task was created and by who. Also shows each time a change was made to that task and by who as well. This is a great tool if your task is no longer doing what you expected it to be doing. You can go back, you can see exactly what changed, when it was changed, get back to that so that you can have everything nice. Just one of the many features of the Unity scheduler. So that's going to do it for my demo.
And as always, there's a lot of online resources on this. It's got its own MRG. There is some information always on our blog, and there's always information on Hyland's community with lots more information as they add more functionality to the Unity scheduler. This is where we'll take some questions. I don't see that we have any at this point. If you do find yourself with questions after this webinar, please feel free to contact support and we can get back to you with answers to those questions. Our current releases, this is funny because actually OnBase did come out with a new release yesterday. So I believe it's 57 now. The Kofax capture is still at version 10. VRS Elite is still at R2. And then our Brainware and our Teleforms. Our next webinar will be in November. We will come out, you will be getting an email with the topic on that. We have not finalized that yet. There's also our conference, which is always wonderful in October. This year it's going to be in Milwaukee at the Potawatomi Hotel and Casino. So we hope that we see everyone there. And as always, this is how to get a hold of us. Most of you already know. You can email us, call us. We also have chat. So many ways you can get a hold of us if you need to talk to us or you just have a question. So thank you again for attending our webinar, and hopefully we'll see you next in November for our November webinar. Have a wonderful day.